So, hi there. My name is KayOnda Bayo. I am a pharmacist and a postdoctoral fellow at Eli Lilly and Company. We are a large pharmaceutical company based right here in the heart of Indianapolis. We discover, develop, and distribute drugs all around the world. So, for today's conversation, I'm going to tell you a bit about how I chose my career as a pharmacist and a researcher. I'll give you a few tips and tricks on how I earned some of my first few jobs. And then, lastly, I'll give you a couple of pearls on how to build your brand as a professional and some things to think about as you decide your career path. Okay, choosing a career. So, I am a pharmacist by training. I attended the University of Texas for undergrad, where I earned a bachelor's degree in nutritional sciences. From there, I went on to complete another 4-year degree at Howard University, where I earned my doctorate of pharmacy. I'm currently completing a postdoctoral fellowship through the Visiting Scientist program here at Eli Lilly, where I focused on research. So, how did I get here? When I was in high school and in middle school, I discovered that I was really interested in my science courses. I really enjoyed science and math and things like that. I also developed a deep desire for being a part of the healthcare system. So that was anything in medicine or like being a doctor or a nurse or something like that. So I knew I was interested in the healthcare system. So for you, when thinking about choosing a career, things like that, I know it sounds daunting, but I would encourage you to focus on courses that you really enjoy. What are those classes? Because you're typically in class for about 8 hours a day, right? What are some of those courses that really make you excited to go to every day? What are some of the classes where you find yourself spending extra time, devoting extra time on that homework without anyone telling you to do so? What are some of the classes where you get really excited where that teacher assigns you a project? I will pay attention to those courses, whether it be art, science, even physical education, PE, or something like that. From there, I will also decide, look internally in who you are as a person. How do you like to work with others and discover things about yourself? Do you like working in a silo? Do you like working by yourself? Do you enjoy work? Do you enjoy group projects? Or do you like delivering on your own projects and having complete ownership of your projects? I will also take note of some industries that you're interested in. Are you interested in the healthcare industry like I was? Or you may be interested in the tech. I know the technology industry is a really interesting place to be. Also, another example of an industry would be the art industry, digital art, web design, things like that. So those are the three things that I would think about if I were in your shoes considering a career. What are some of the subject matters that I'm interested in? How do I like to work with others? And how do I like to deliver on projects? Who am I? And then lastly, what are some industries that I'm interested in? So if you can answer those questions, I think you're really ahead and that'll give you a good start towards choosing a career. So, landing a job. For me, whenever I prepare for a job interview or whenever I enter the job hunt, I try to learn as much as possible about that role. So, my first job was as a waitress. I actually spoke to other waitresses. What is it like being a waitress? What are some of the difficult things that you experience during your job as a waitress? What are some of the joys? There are some of the things that you really enjoy about this. And I also try to speak to people who work for the manager who's hiring for that role. So I try to learn as much about the manager as possible. What is the manager like? What are some things that they're looking for in this role? That's really helpful. So in summary, you want to do as much background research as possible about that role. The worst thing you can do is sit down in an interview for a job and not fully understand that job's responsibility. Next, I would encourage you to know as much about yourself as possible. When you're interviewing for a role, they can ask some pretty tricky questions, such as what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses, and what are some things that you dislike doing at work or something like that. What are your hobbies? And so it's really good to have a good understanding of who you are and also what you bring to the table. Um, I always try to keep in mind that whenever I interview for a role, I'm not the only person interviewing, right? There could be 5 to 10 other individuals who would be interviewing for a specific role. But I always try to figure out, what is it that makes me unique? What is it that makes me different? And what is it that I bring to the table that no one else that you would ever interview could bring to the table? So going back to that waitress job, if I was interviewing for a job as a waitress, yes, I'm a waitress. I can do the job as a waitress, but I'm also very creative and I can make flyers. I can make flyers for the restaurant. That was just a loose example, but just to show you that try to tap into some of the things that make you different from any other for any other one who will be interviewing for that role. You also want to keep in mind that as you complete the job interview, you want to thank that individual for taking the time to interview you. So whether you send a brief thank you email or you leave that person with a thank you card, you do want to be sure to thank them for their time. And then lastly, it is a reality, not every job that you interview for, you will earn. But one thing to keep in mind is that if you do well in that job interview, networking and developing your brand is really important. So, hey, that person may not have been able to hire you at the time, but they may remember you in the future for another opportunity. So, you want to take every job interview very seriously and leave a lasting remark throughout that interview. Okay. When it comes to building a career, I kind of think of two fundamental building blocks that I just want to continue to build upon. So the first one is developing who I am and what I bring to the table, developing my skill set, upskilling myself. So I am a pharmacist. I'm completing a postdoctoral fellowship, and I'm also completing a master's degree. So these are things that I'm doing to develop myself so I could get better at the roles that I'm pursuing. But then also there's a networking piece. There's a community piece that you need as well. So yes, you need to be a good person who can perform on the job, but you also want to have mentors and sponsors and managers who can give you advice along the way. It does you no good to be a fantastic researcher or a fantastic scientist or a fantastic artist if you don't have a network of people who are going to support you and promote you to get into where you want to go. So when I think of building a career, you want to kind of juggle the two. My career trajectory is not typical for a pharmacist. Typically, when you think of a pharmacist, you think of someone who's dispensing medications and interacting with patients. However, for myself, I am a researcher. So, and the position that I am in is a result of those two building blocks that I said, me having a desire to do research and do good research, but also me having mentors and individuals who can kind of advise me on the path to be a good researcher. So those are two things you want to think about when you think about building a career.